Module 1, Versiton NVR System Overview. In this module, we will give you an overview of the Versiton NVR system. As you can see, this is the user interface of the Versiton NVR system, and all of the cameras that are currently available are displayed on the screen. In this case, we don't have cameras in the first 4 sections, but we do have cameras in the other 4 of the sections, as you can see on the left hand side. So this side of the window essentially contains all of the cameras that are displayed, that are connected to the system. The bottom of the screen essentially displays the various options that you can use to display the cameras. For example, if you had just 4 of the cameras that you wanted to view at all times, you would press this one button, and essentially that would bring one of the cameras in the bigger view and the other cameras in the smaller view. Similarly, this other division displays 6 cameras in that. And by the way, you can also drag and drop the cameras onto the various sections, so that way you're not limited to that particular camera having a view on one or the other based on the camera numbers. Again, it all can be customized according to how you feel comfortable. Similarly, there is an arrangement of 9, 12, starting at 1, 4, 6, all the different kinds that, so users are encouraged to use whichever layout best works out for them. If you hover over each one of these, it'll actually display the number of cameras that it can take. These 2 buttons on the right hand side, this button will essentially take the camera display onto the full screen. So while pressing that button, you will see that it goes on to full screen without the display of these menus. This is good if you have a dedicated monitor that's always looking at the cameras, and of course, in order to get back, you would press the escape key on your keyboard, which will take you back to the original. This button essentially is for auto scan, which means that all of these cameras that are installed on your system, you will be able to scan through each one of them. Again, the scan timings can be configured based on the user requirement. So that essentially takes care of the camera section as well as the display area at the bottom. On the right hand side pretty much is the control panel. This black window that you see up here, it essentially displays some useful information. Of course, this is the current date, time, the user who is logged in. The free 1.5 TB essentially indicates the amount of hard drive space that is currently available. And the icons here at the bottom, the ones that are lighted up, are essentially the services that are currently connected to the NVR. So for example, if there's a cell phone connected to the NVR that is looking at the live view, this thing would light up, and so on and so forth. The buttons, the 5 buttons up here, if you would like to know the functionality of each one of them, the idea is that you would hover on each one of them and it will come up with the menu items. So for example, this one is the start menu. If you were to press on that, it will give you all of the other options that are within that sub menu. So it's start monitoring, stop recording, and scheduling, and so on and so forth. This button essentially would execute the playback system. What that means is, so if you want to be able to review the recording, it looks like a film roll, like in the olden times. So once you press that, it would essentially bring up the playback system. The button on the bottom left is schedule configuration. That is essentially so you can schedule the recordings on the camera, whether you want the schedule to be based on continuous recording, on motion, and things like that. Okay. Again, these will be something that will be configured by your installer based on your requirements. So not necessarily that you'd have to go in there, but if you need to, you can always. Okay. The next button here is the Smart Guard configuration. Under Smart Guard configuration, basically you can program the system to do intelligent activities for you. For example, under here in the Access Hosted Cam system, we have programmed the system to say if there is any general motion in an area, to essentially bring up an EMAP. We will go over the EMAP in one of the other modules where we get into the details of it, but essentially the idea is when it senses motion, it will bring up a map with the cameras on it, so that way you can figure out if there is motion which is essential or is it something that needs to be investigated? Then the next button, the one that looks like a spanner, this is where the general settings are, and under general settings you will see a lot of these menu items. These menu items are available only for an administration user. All of the other users who do not have that privilege will not be seeing all of these menu items. So of course there are different kinds of settings that we can go into, but since this is just an overview module, we won't be getting into the details of that. The bottom right hand side corner essentially gives you the ability to work with camera. So for example, if you see this button, let's say for example we take this camera, and if we want to be able to digitally zoom in and out or move the camera, this is what this will do. So by pressing this buttons up here, you're able, if you have a pan tilt zoom camera that has the capability to move around, you'd be able to use this one in so you can actually move the camera around and look at different areas that the camera does cover. Okay, this one is these buttons essentially are for zooming in, zooming out, and things like that. And these buttons up here on the right hand side, these are for preset points. Again, this is something that you would use if you have a pan tilt zoom camera, but if you have a static camera that is fixed, then most of the time these buttons would not be highlighted. So for example, if I were to go into this fixed camera here, you will see all of the menu items here are grayed out, but the moment I go into a PTZ camera, all of these menu items light up. Now this one is for focusing, focus near, focus far, or autofocus. So focus far, autofocus, and focus near. So again, these are buttons that would be normally used with the PTZ cameras. Other than that, for fixed cameras, this area is pretty much grayed out. So that pretty much ends our module 1 of overview of the user interface for Versiton NVR system. Thanks very much for watching. Spytech Security Solutions, your digital IP video surveillance experts.